I'm going to tell you a story, and this story may sound familiar to you, okay? You get home, maybe you have kids, maybe you have a wife, maybe you're just by yourself, right? And you think, man, I am so hungry. But then you realize all you have is ingredients. There's nothing ready to go. But you do want something that's still healthy. You'd rather not go out to eat for price reasons as well as just the overall health aspect. Well, welcome to today's episode of Frugal Friendly Food. We're going to teach you how to make a split pea soup that is high in protein, high in nutrients, and it really only takes about 5 minutes. Hey Provident Preppers, I am Sam. Welcome back to another episode of Frugal Friendly Foods. And I'm very excited to be back with you all today. We're going to be making split pea soup, or as my mom calls it, magic pea soup, because it's essentially just instant split pea soup. And it's pretty dang good. So we're just going to jump right in and get started with this. We have our pot getting ready and heating up on high heat. We're going to add 2 cups of water, if I don't spill too much of it. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our vegetables to let them rehydrate. We're using dehydrated vegetables. If you're using fresh vegetables, they're going to need to cook a little bit longer. Just because they're fresh, they have that crispness and that hardiness, I guess you could say. So we have 1.5 teaspoons or half a tablespoon of dehydrated carrots. We have half a tablespoon of dehydrated chopped onion. We have here a half a tablespoon of, this is freeze-dried celery ground up. You can use fresh celery as well. I don't know exactly what that equates to measurement-wise. But yeah, that's what we're using here. You probably also could just use normal dehydrated stuff as well. And then with this, we're also just going to throw in our bacon bits. Now, this part, we have a soup base. This is chicken soup base. The preferred thing to do is to have chicken broth and then add just a little bit of salt on top of that. We're not doing that today. This is super easy though. We're using, it says 1 to 2 teaspoons of soup base. We have about 1.5 here, but that's really going to help bring out that flavor. Just because this is budget doesn't mean that it needs to taste bad. So we're going to throw that in. All right, so now we have all of these ingredients in here, and we're going to talk just very briefly about how the split pea thing is going to work. This is standard for what you would find when you go to the store and you get split peas. It literally just looks like a small pea that's been split in half. What we did is we ground it up into a flour. Back here you can see our impact grinder. This is something that is very important when it comes to grinding grains and making other flours, is that you have the right impact grinder or the right grinder in general for what you're trying to grind. And we have a whole video on how you can choose the best grinder for what you're going to be doing. This one is really hardy and it is very loud. And so something that we'll do is we'll just grind up a bunch of it and put it into a container like this. Split peas, if you store them right, will last on the shelf for about 25 years. Obviously that's not, when it's ground into a flour, this will only last us a couple of months, but we have it in a container that's all we're gonna need it for anyway. And so now we've brought this to a boil. We've turned it down to medium heat, and it's just kind of simmering for a couple of minutes to let the vegetables kind of soften up a little bit. And so what we have here, this is the next thing that we're gonna do. We have 1/4 cup of our split pea flour. We just ground it up this morning. And what we're gonna do is, after this is sat for just a minute or so, or 2 minutes, you wanna go very slowly, kind of like making gravy. You're just gonna kind of whisk it in a little bit at a time, not being too crazy rough with it, but sometimes to get the lumps out, you need to give it a little bit of tough love. And now that we've gotten all of that pea flour added back in, we are going to bring that back up to a boil. So I've upped the heat a little bit more to do this. You probably don't have to, because medium heat will do pretty well to bring it to a boil, but I have upped it just a little bit because I'm impatient. And once it does get to a boil, you want to let it boil there for about a minute. It's going to let it thicken up and also let the flavors kind of conglomerate together a little bit. All right, and now for less money than if I were to buy canned split pea soup and just a little bit more time, we have ourselves a very tasty, very nutritious split pea soup meal. And I'm gonna play dress up with this one a little bit. I like putting, adding things to my soup. And I'm just gonna kind of show you a little bit of the possibilities here. First thing, we've talked a little bit about how pricey cheese can be and how that can be kind of, I don't wanna say a hindrance, but kind of just like an added significant cost to your meals. And so in this case, I just add, just a little bit. I'm a cheese guy, but frugal friendly foods. So another thing that the manager has asked me to mention is that this is sharp cheddar cheese. Something about buying sharp cheddar rather than medium or mild, the flavor is gonna go a lot further with the sharp, and it's pretty much the same cost, but you just get a little bit of extra flavor, meaning you don't have to spend quite as much on it, which, you make the little things add up, right? Bacon bits, we already used some of it. A bag like this is not very expensive. You can get a whole bag like this for a couple of bucks, and it's gonna add a whole lot of flavor to your meal. Once again, there's already bacon bits in here, so just kind of put a little bit on the top. Crack some fresh black pepper. And then, what would a video be if I didn't put Cholula on the food, right? Got to put a little bit of hot sauce on there. Hot sauce has become kind of my go-to condiment as a poor starving college student. That's kind of, I live off of hot sauce essentially. So another great addition is something like crackers or some other kind of bread. I think one of my favorite kinds of bread to have with soups is just homemade bread. It's super easy. You can put it in a bread machine. Even not with a bread machine, it's like one of the easiest foods to make. And that's always something, and it's very inexpensive. Depending on the bread machine and the recipe that you're making, I can make bread in my bread machine for as low as like 50 cents a loaf. And that'll last me 3 or 4 meals, especially meals like this where I'm having, a slice or two. And now I do have the privilege of trying this magical substance, which I've tried before, obviously. But, yeah. It's so good. And the hot sauce also, I'm just like now piecing this together. The hot sauce is really kind of bringing out the flavor of the bacon, which is pretty cool. You can do some fun additions to this soup. A couple that I didn't mention, you can like chop up potatoes, and you'd have to like let them cook a little bit, or you could do dehydrated potatoes and add that in. I feel like that'd be really good. I think even some like butternut squash. It sounds really weird, but I think it actually could be pretty good. I don't know. That's for you to figure out. You got to figure out what works for you. And now for the question of the day. What is your favorite easy soup to make, or quick, or frugal friendly? Actually, preferably all three. But anyway, comment down below, and thanks for being part of the solution.